I'm on the phone with Solar, and he's gearing up to release a tell-all book. Can you tell us more about the book?
Well, the book is actually out now, so it's available on all your major book purveyors as well as Amazon. So you got Barnes and Nobles and any other big book sellers. So it's actually out, and I've actually had a chance to get the book to some to the fans and to some really dedicated book sites, book blogs where they just really review books, and it's been very well reviewed, and I've been highly complimented as an author. But to get to the heart of your question, the book is about all the positive aspects of Guru's life that he wanted to be told to the fans, and equally demanded that I really go into the entire relationship with me and Guru, how we became friends, how we grew up. We basically lived very similar lives, even though he grew up in Boston and I grew up in New York. Mm-hmm. And I was really one of the inceptors of hip hop. I was a part of the birth, one of the unsung heroes. So I go into all of that, how we both got into hip hop, my experiences here in New York where it was being born and created, and then you actually get an idea of actually how it filtered out to Boston and how he was coming to New York to get it. So all the great and beautiful things about Guru's life that should have been told, that was substituted with lies and trash and disgusting, nonsense and allegations, was addressed. And the time factor of why it took so long to bring the book forward is equally addressed, that there was a court action where I was actually prohibited from defending him or really myself in the proper form, a book, because things were flying around so fast and furious. There was no way to address it interview per interview or on Twitter or on Instagram effectively. So with this type of situation, it always demands a book, it always demands a movie, it always demands a documentary. So the state premier took me to court, got a court order to stop me from telling the truth about Guru's life.
Wow.
Until I won. Which begs the next question. What kind of people would want this type of thing to stick and would not want the truth? So only people who would want that are people who lied, who made up these rumors, who were sponsors and instigators of all of this because they felt it was going to work for them in court or whatever. I don't know what motivates people to do wicked and evil things like that, but I can never do anything like that to my loved ones, and I love Guru like a brother. So in the book, I lay out all the facts. I lay it out in such a fashion that even if there's any doubt, any reader can just Google search those topics, and then the truth will come up to that Google search, the facts. I equally bring pictures and court accounts, which are a part of the public record, which again is easily researchable. So I go after the first assault on my character and Guru's relationship, where it was said by his so-called nephew that I swooped in at the end. I was some kind of vulture, essentially. It just swooped in and took over things, when in fact me and Guru have been business partners and friends for 10 years and friends with his family. So I show pictures of me and his family, his mother and father, in different settings, and me and his son, who was my godson, and essentially I was his uncle, and vice versa, him of my son. And so they get to see the pictures of the families together and get to see pictures of me. This is 10 years prior to Guru's demise. So they can only imagine if this is how we were, 10 years before he died, how much that closeness would have, became towards him demising. And ultimately, me being held responsible or being the one given the responsibility by Guru to tell his story and to tell it accurately, his life story. And unfortunately for the situation, he had an idea that all of this was coming down the pike as he started to get sick. These people put it out there like Guru just died. They knew he was sick. They knew he had cancer. They could have at any time, he had cancer for a year, made peace with him. But instead you wait for him to die and then attack me. So I get sucked into this vortex of dysfunctionality. So there's the reasons for the book, to really lay out the greatness of Guru and what his impact should have been, and to hopefully eradicate this schizophrenic situation they put out there. Like, oh, he was great until he left Premiere. Up until the point he left Premiere, then he became crazy. He became something else. And they don't even talk about why that happened or what point that was. So it's just massive amounts of bullshit that was put out there to harm me because I was vulnerable, obviously, just losing Guru and, things being in such an uncertain state legally and so on. And going, losing someone you love and going through a cancer battle for a year, which is draining. It's tough. So this is a book about the greatness of Guru. So those fans that want to celebrate Guru and Gangstarr and Jazzmatazz and know the whole story, the real story behind Guru's greatness and how he discovered Premier and how he started Gangstarr. He was the founder and the creator of Gangstarr. Premier came in later. Then they became collectively known as Gangstarr, but Guru was Gangstarr when he came to New York. So there's so many different fascinating aspects and truths that people didn't know, and some of the dirt and grime that they chose to suppress is in there too. But on the whole, even with such a horrible situation where Guru was essentially murdered by unscrupulous doctors and so on, and reasons why I think that came to be, why those doctors were motivated to commit murder against Guru, it's all there. But it's also, like I said, a celebration of his life and the man that he is, the life that he lived growing up. It is very interesting. I mean, he was a very powerful, unique individual, and those people who question me and question who I am and where I came from, I lay my whole history out there so they can understand who I was and the time of the different times, really, of the involvement of hip-hop and how I grew up in New York and became a man, an adult, and then became a producer and then a super producer and, to whatever you consider me to be now.
Wow. How long is the book?
The book's about 220-something pages.
Okay, that's a nice little read.
Not too bad. Not a bad read. When we sat down to editors to get it right, and I depended on them, it could have went 300 and change, but they said it did 220 fit. Like I said, everybody who's read the book, they all just say the same thing. Wow, great book. It just left me wanting to read more. And willfully, I'll have a future as an author after this. More books.
So I wanted to backtrack really quickly because you gave such a great, thorough explanation. You said that you believe that Guru was murdered by doctors.
Yes, I believe it, and I believe that any reasonably minded person, especially people who've had an experience with cancer, will agree. And the medical experts who've looked at the facts, and I've laid them out in some detail in the book, have agreed. Nobody has saw that anything that was done medically to Guru was sound. And let me go into it in a little bit more detail so fans can understand. It started with a small tumor on his spine.
Okay.
And the tumor could have actually been treated holistically. And those that don't know, that's through herbs and vitamins and, different teas. And there's a whole field of medicine that predates Western medicine, which is now called holistic medicine. And Guru and I are both vegetarians. So he was in tune to that. And he would have been of the mind to do that. But the doctors that were involved, they scared him so horrifically that he voided from my advice and the advice of other people who he trusted and believed in lieu of the fear that they put into him. And they never really explained to him what this operation entailed. So to try to keep this brief, and those fans that really want to know, you have to read the book because it's more in detail. But the operation was the tumor was about the size of a golf ball, maybe less, maybe a little bit smaller. You couldn't even see, like if you looked at his back, you couldn't see it protrude. You know what I mean? So you had to actually feel his back to feel. So it wasn't a big tumor, but it was sitting on his spine in a certain place, which was causing him discomfort. He wasn't in a tremendous amount of pain. He wasn't not able to function. He was aggravated. It wasn't. I know people have loved ones that have really bad, serious back issues. So it wasn't serious, but it caused him discomfort. It was the fear that they put into him that made him take the operation. And the operation itself was an endeavor in murder. And these doctors had ulterior motives, as by they were connected with people who had raped Guru for millions of dollars. And as again, the book goes into the whole situation. And I'm sure the average listener now will know that there's nothing new in the music business about a rapper getting robbed or any entertainer getting robbed for money. or millions, in some cases hundreds of millions. And he was one, but he came out of that and was doing great financially. We were doing great, and the future was looking fantastic. So he was actually in a very good place. And obviously, when people do something like this to you, they really don't want you to live afterwards to tell the tale. And if they had it their way, I wouldn't have lived either. If you go back into the records, they was putting all kinds of information out there. I mean, where I lived, where my studio was. They were trying to get me murdered also. Just that I'm a little bit too cagey for all that. Certainly being a born and bred New Yorker, I was more than ready for anything that could come my way. But long story longer, the operation was a success for the murderers, and of course a failure for Guru, and there was no coming back. They cut him open so badly, they took his stomach out, they took his insides out. I mean, one of the hardest decisions I had to make was to show, whether to show the pictures and the video in the book, which I chose not to show the pictures or put a link to the video. When we do the documentary, I'll revisit that decision. But it was a mess. They tore him up. And he fought. I'll give him that. He fought valiantly. But there was no coming back from that. So after he really started to get deep into the cancer and we started taking to other doctors, every doctor said, you should never have had this operation. This is insane. You know, it's malpractice. And Few said, essentially, it's medical murder. You know, there's no way you would survive it. The cancer itself wasn't that bad. It was survivable. But the operation was not. So after the operation, it went from a survivable cancer to, okay, you got, tops 3 to 4 years to live, maybe 5.
Wow. And at that point, after the operation and the doctor said that he had a limited amount of time to live, he didn't seek like the holistic practices that you guys discussed before the operation?
Exactly. We went to the holistic doctors, but the operation involved them putting a piece of titanium rod in his back with multiple screws, which had him in excruciating pain, had him hunched over. And you think about it, look at your spine or your bones like wood. If a wood gets rotten or has a disease, the last thing you want to do is try to put screws into that rotten part.
Right.
And that's exactly what happens with cancer, with that type of cancer, to weaken the bones. So it's just insane. So by the time we got him to the holistic doctor, they tried, and they all said the same thing, that it's really a foregone conclusion. He should have came to us before. He should have never had this operation. And, unfortunately, we all know there are unscrupulous people walking around this planet that do horrible and hideous things, and in some cases get away with it. This particular case, there's no way to prosecute. And the family, and when you read the book, you understand they certainly didn't care, and they had no interest in going after these doctors. And that's also something for the fans to think about. At the end of the day, I put out all the facts to dispel all the rumors and the hideous garbage and trash that was out there and give it to the fans. But touching on your point, which is a good point, Guru had now a period of time to know that this was going to be fatal, that he had to make arrangements for his life and for his financial and his health, and that's where I came in. And he decided his decisions was to put me in charge of things, and for me to move forward with the dreams that we had and he had, and to be the one responsible to tell his stories and administer the catalog and so on and so forth. And obviously, the family and the Sokol family and Premier had other ideas, and we see where it's at. Now I'm basically the cleanup man, with the hopes that this will suffice, that this book and the documentary and the biopic movie will actually put this ship right before it just sinks like the Titanic. His legacy and his reputation with it. He has a son.
Also, there are plans to produce a biopic on the story?
Well, if things continue to go well with the book, with the documentary, I can't imagine that the movie wouldn't follow, and we've already had some calls from producers and so on. So, yeah, I believe that if everything goes well, it will be followed by a documentary and a biopic, yes.
Will his family be involved in any way in the creative process? Because I know you guys had a falling out after his demise.
I don't know. The answer to that is a bit unknown. So the movie and the biopic would be based on, at this point, the book and the life story as I understand it. But I rule nothing out. And if they have something positive to bring to the table, bring it. But I don't think at this point people are interested in their lives. When you look at everything that's been put out there, it's all lies. So how do you move forward from their perspective unless they apologize and own the lies and make clear why they put those lies out there. Example, one of the most hideous and disgusting lies was a band member who was fired from our original band, 7 Grand, and Guru actually had a physical confrontation with this dude. Guru had to beat the shit out of this dude in Europe. So he had a grudge against Guru and me, and we had docked him a significant amount of money for him not doing what he was supposed to do on the tour. He went and wrote the most hideous, disgusting shit you could possibly imagine. That's still out there in the Google world. And the legend that Guru was the biggest faggot, punk, pussy. I was a sexual abuser. I mean, it's disgusting. I mean, the most hideous, disgusting thing you could ever say about a man that wasn't here to defend himself, and a man who is here. And this fucker hid out in Canada, still hiding in Canada, because I ever get my hands on him, I have to deal with the justice system myself on a whole nother level. They turned around and invited this scumbag, this piece of shit, to his funeral, where his son is at, publicly. So, I just can't wrap my head around that type of people. How you could hate somebody and then claim to represent their legacy when you hate them, and you could do something like that to a man who was dying when all of this started, and then capped, while it was in full effect. And me left to try to defend it with all this shit, death threats going around, and, they're hacking my emails and all kinds of crazy shit they were doing to silence me. You know what I mean? Which at the end fails, or has failed. So.
Wow. Well, I definitely need to get my hands on a copy.
When something like this is done to a righteous man, there's consequences. There's consequences. And these consequences are being seen and felt, but it's so advanced that not many will be able to fully understand what they're seeing and hearing. But it is happening as we speak. If we look at from the day that Guru returned in 2010, look at the state of hip-hop and the music industry and even the world, you can see it. If you're looking at it on a chart, you can see a big arrow leading to spikes. So right now, and even up to the Nipsey Hussle situation, things have just gotten worse and worse and worse since they did this to him. I would say, go so far as to say, there's a curse on all of them. And a curse on them and all of their ancestors for the dirt and filth that they did.
Wow. Wow, that was deep. So hip hop has a curse over us right now.
I would say so, from my perspective. I'd say so.
Well, now you told your truth in your book. Yep. Closing out, let everyone know where they can grab a copy.
You can go to Amazon.com, Moment of Truth book. You can go to my Facebook page, Solar Official, or Guru's Jazzmatazz, and you'll see links there to buy the book. Or you can just do a simple Google search, Moment of Truth by Solar, Guru Gangstarr story, right there.
Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you.
I appreciate you having me, Queen.
Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.